What's up guys, Brian here with BPS Customs. You know, lately I haven't done so much on the channel that you guys might consider custom. In the beginning of the channel's life, I certainly focused a lot more on specialty projects, water cooling, talking about water cooling, doing water cooling stuff. And lately I've been focusing more on product reviews, monthly builds using, I guess, regular components, stuff that you guys could pretty easily replicate. And that's been really good for my audience. I think my audience really wants to see that stuff. They can relate to that stuff. But what I started out as is a custom builder, and I still am that at heart. So when I got the opportunity to do another water cooling project, and Watercooled reached out to me, that's Heat Killer, and said that they wanted to be a part of it, I was really pumped. It's taken a little while to get everything together, get the parts here, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. But as you can see back here, I've already started mocking a few things up inside the Corsair Crystal 570X case that I had powder coated white. If you want a little more information on that, you could check out this video up here. And I've also got some of my tools out back behind me. I'm not sure how much of that you guys can see, but I've already just kind of been concepting a little bit. But what I want to do is rewind. We're going to talk about the parts involved in this project and what you guys can expect moving forward. So let's do that right now. All right, so let's first take a look at the water cooling components that we're going to be using for this build. Now, one of the things that attracted me to the Watercooled brand was that everybody that I talked to told me how high quality all their stuff was. And when I got the Heat Killer products in the office, I can certainly say that everything that I had heard is correct. This is a full glass reservoir with aluminum support brackets and an interchangeable top and a D5 pump bottom. Now, this came disassembled, so I have obviously already done some assembly here. It just kind of came with the tube and the brackets, and then the inlet and outlet down here. I actually changed out this top, which is what came with it at first, because I wanted to be able to do the inlet on the top of the reservoir as opposed to on the front of the reservoir. You can see that I've also already mounted the D5 pump here. Basically you have to unscrew this bottom section, put in an O-ring, put in the pump, and then reattach everything. You can also see that I've sleeved these cables because as much as I like what I'm seeing so far from Watercooled and Heat Killer, these cables coming unsleeved with like black, red, and then green and yellow wiring would just have totally killed the look inside the case. So I am not by any means a professional sleever. I'm not great at it, but I did manage to put this sleeving on here, and I think it looks fine. You're not going to see a whole lot of it. It's basically going to be bent back this way to be routed through the back of the motherboard tray, and you're not going to see these ends at all. So any color that you see showing right here is not something that's going to show up in the final build. You'll just kind of see some of this sleeving. That's about it. But when everything is put together, I think this pump res combo, along with now these black sleeve cables, looks great. And I think that it's going to be standing up like this, and it's going to be screwed to one of the radiators. And I can't wait to get it in the case. I think it's going to look awesome. So the actual thing that held up this process the most was getting in these Heat Killer 4 back plates. Now, as you can see, they are like a matte finish. There's almost like a brushed finish to them. Let's see if I can get that in focus. Sort of. Maybe. But they have the Heat Killer logo here. I mean, other than that, they're just kind of a standard back plate. But they do come with some thermal pads, so you're going to get some contact with the back of the PCB, so for a little bit of passive cooling. My rep with Watercooled actually asked me if I wanted to go ahead with the build before the back plates were ready, and this was a couple weeks ago while we were still waiting on things, and I just flat out said that I don't think that that's a good idea. This is going to be a very high-end system, and just having exposed PCBs at the back of the GPUs wouldn't go. It wouldn't look great, especially when we have GPU blocks that look like this. And these things also are super sweet looking. These are full cover blocks. These are obviously heat killer 4s. And then they're gonna provide direct contact to everything you need to cool. And they look great. They have this nice black matte finish on them. They have obviously inlet and outlet on top and bottom. And the width of the inlet and outlet are actually such that it should not interfere with an SLI bridge. So that's also very important. But these blocks look awesome, and as you can see, I think putting one of these or two of these in a system without backplates would not be doing justice to the quality and finish of this product, and also hopefully the quality and finish of my build. So I think I made the right call on holding off, and now we have the backplates, so we can move forward. So moving over to this side of the table, all these are installation brackets for the CPU block. Now I don't yet have the CPU block. It didn't come in the main package with everything else from Watercooled, so I'm hoping that is en route separately. I have contacted my rep about it, but we don't need it to start the build initially. So we're gonna start getting some components in the system without the CPU block, and hopefully that comes in soon. If for some reason it doesn't, I could always put an EK block in at least temporarily. But this is, like I said, this is the top for the tube. We're gonna be using Primo Chill True UV purple coolant. Now, we're not gonna be building a UV system. There's gonna be no UV lights. I actually not a huge fan of UV, but this was the closest to the purple that I wanted, that I could find in any coolant, and it's not opaque. It's not a pastel coolant, which I did not want. I wanted like a clear, or at least a semi-clear purple. So this is gonna suit our needs really well. I'm just gonna mix this in with some distilled water. As far as fittings go, we're gonna be using all these Bits Power white fittings. And I opened one of them, here it is, so I could show you guys. But I use these fittings, or not these specific fittings, but these same kind of fittings in my Manta build, the green and white Manta build that I did. I've never had an issue with Bits Power fittings. They've always performed really well for me. The fit and the seal is tight. I've never had one leak, although please don't take that as me saying that they never leak, because they certainly do, but I've never had one leak. And I think they look great with the matte white finish. And inside of our white case with the purple coolant, I think these are gonna look awesome. So I got this whole box in them right here. And there's basically everything in here that you could possibly want. Maybe not you, but certainly me. I hope it's enough, to be honest with you, because as goes most water cooling builds, I always end up having to order more fittings. You never quite have enough. And then for radiators, we're gonna be reusing a couple EK Coolstream PE rads that I had in deep red. And as you can see, they are a little dinged up along the fins. These were in use for quite a while, and you could see that they're actually a little dusty too, along with some scratching here. That's okay. What you're gonna end up seeing is the side of the radiators, and that's pretty much it. The top is gonna be against the case, and the bottom is gonna be covered by fans. So all you're gonna see is this strip, and this strip looks fine. There's no damage to it at all. And they still obviously retain all their cooling capacity. I will need to clean them because, as you can see, they are dusty, but that will happen maybe in a few minutes. And then we'll be able to reuse these for the system, and it should be fine. I mean, if for some reason something were to happen, I would go out and replace these with probably a little bit thicker rads. These are 30 mils, and I think maybe I'd want 45s if I were to go and replace these. But for now, these should certainly be fine with the amount of heat that we're gonna have in our system. Okay, so let's take a look at the actual hardware that's gonna go in here. So we're just gonna be working from left to right. We're gonna start off with a 4x8 kit of Corsair Vengeance LED DDR4 3200. Now this box is actually empty right now because I have this kit in my Ryzen system, because the Ryzen system is serving as my daily driver. We're gonna transplant that when we get closer to completion, and I can just shut down the Ryzen system at least for now. But also you'll notice that there's going to be no storage on this table because the storage is actually in the same situation. I'm using a Samsung 850 EVO 512 and Western Digital 4TB black drive. In that system, that's going to be transferred over here. But like I said, this is an empty box. I've actually reached out to Corsair to see if they can send me over another kit of memory because I'd like to run 64 gigs if possible, and I'd like to use their RGB LED memory. So I could like maybe alternate like white, purple in the dim slots. That remains to be seen. If that doesn't happen, we still have a good amount of memory that we could use, and it will be quad channel. And this is really good stuff. Another product from Corsair, this is the HX1000i power supply. I lost the outer sleeve here, but trust me, it is in there. I used this for my deep red build. I never had any problems with it. It's extremely reliable, platinum rated, fully modular. Cables are on the way from Senpai Studios, so I'm looking forward to getting those in the studio and just seeing how they match up with everything, but Joe always does fantastic work, so I can't wait. Moving over, we have, I guess, the brains of the system. This is the X99 Tai Chi by ASRock. This is one of the highest or most recommended motherboards for X99, especially when I talk to, like, I guess my peers, other YouTubers, other reviewers. They all have extremely good things to say about this board. It comes in like this premium packaging with this handle on it and stuff, and I opened up the box. It looks sweet. It's white and black, which is going to go great in our case, which is white, and then obviously we're going to have the purple accents and whatnot. But like I said, very highly rated board, and it's going to pair with the i7 6900K that was in deep red. Oh my god, we've recovered. So anyway, 6900K, Broadwell E CPU. This was, and still is, just an amazing processor. In the grand scheme of things, it's probably, I guess, overpriced, especially now considering some announcements that have come out in the wake of Computex and how the 7900K for $100 cheaper is going to be the equivalent of a 6950X, which was a $1,700 chip. So it remains to be seen how this is going to stack up against the newer stuff, but even for now, this is still an amazing processor. Rips through video rendering tasks like nothing else I've ever used, and it's going to be just fine for now. I will consider going up to X299 when I have all that stuff in office. I'm supposed to be getting some X99 motherboards in pretty soon, or X299 motherboards in pretty soon, and I'll consider it. The retention bracket for the CPU coolers are actually the same, so the same blocks will be able to be used without any problems, and the orientation should be, if not the same, very similar, so rerouting tubing and stuff shouldn't be an issue. Depending on how things go and how X299 performs, perhaps I'll do an upgrade, not that distant in the future, but for now, the 6900K is going to be where it's at, and I'm sure it's going to perform great, because I know it performs great. Moving over to what I guess probably most everybody wants to see. There are two GTX 1080 Ti Founders cards here. One is from NVIDIA, one is from Zotac. These are just amazing feats of engineering when it comes to power consumption and performance, and I can't wait to have both of them in my system. I've never had a permanent system with two of these. I did a couple videos running these in SLI on my test bench, just doing some testing, but never had them permanently installed. So can't wait to get them in my system and see how things go. But I will have to strap the heat killer water blocks to these, and I wanted to do a little tutorial, a little how-to on how to do that, and we'll do that right now. All right, so regardless of what water block you guys are going to be using, because they all mount slightly differently, the first thing you have to do universally is get this reference shroud or whatever shroud you have, the stock cooler, off of the PCB so that you can mount the block directly to the GPU die. And the way we do that, the way I prefer to do that, is by using my iFixit kit, just because the shroud, although we're not going to be unscrewing everything here, the shroud here has all kinds of different Allen head screws, Phillips screws, all kinds of different fastening mechanisms all over it. And if you're always fiddling with something like an Allen key or something along those lines, it's going to take you forever to do something like this. By having all these different bits available, you could just use the one screwdriver. It makes things a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing stripped down first. And we're going to start on the back plate. And I'm going to fast forward through this so you guys don't have to suffer with me. Okay, all the screws are out. This is the very definition of a tedious process, because you have these tiny screws screwed into this very small socket. So like I said, having something like the iFixit kit that has different sockets that you could put into your screwdriver comes in really handy. But all the screws are out now. Don't forget, you do have to take out 2 screws along here, and then the shroud you should be able to wiggle off. All right, and don't forget that you do have to unplug it, because it's plugged in both the RGB or for the lit logo, as well as the fan. All right, so this is what we are left with. Here's the shroud. You can see the contact point for the GPU die, and then you're just left with this. This is all this is a bare PCB, but this is your GPU. We have to clean this off. We're going to use some isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to take off these remaining thermal pads, because these things are kind of crappy anyway. And we're going to apply all new thermal pads. We're going to apply some new paste, and we're going to put on the new block. All right, as you can see, we got everything cleaned off here. We got the die is nice and shiny. There is some residual thermal paste around the edges here. It's not too worrisome. It happens. It's non-conductive material. You're going to be fine. So I wouldn't worry about that. Okay, so the first thing you should do once you get everything stripped down is actually consult your directions. It'll tell you exactly where to apply your thermal pads. You're going to want thermal pads over your memory modules. You're going to want thermal pads over the VRMs, and basically everything on here that looks important gets a thermal pad. So the caps stay bare, but everything else gets covered, and that's so that we can make some real solid contact between the parts of this card that will heat up and the water block. All right, all the thermal pads are on. One thing that I actually really like about the Watercooled kits that I've actually just discovered is that all the thermal pads come cut to size. The EK, while obviously fabulous products, come in just long strips of thermal pads, and you have to cut them to fit whatever you're putting them on. So that takes a little bit of time, but everything here was cut really nicely, so that saved me a few minutes for sure. And you'll notice that not everything is perfect. Things aren't exactly straight and lined up, and that's entirely fine as long as the appropriate components are covered, and you're going to be able to make a thermal coupling between the component and the water block on top. So that's the purpose of the thermal pads. Doesn't need to be perfect. Don't have them hanging off the side of the PCB or anything, but they don't need to be perfectly straight. Okay, so let's get this block on here. And there you have it. Your finished CPU water block. Ain't she sexy? Yes, she is. Now I gotta do this again. Alright guys, so we are at the part of the process now where I could start doing some more aggressive mock-ups. What you guys saw in the beginning of the video, where I just had the front radiator installed, where I was kind of pointing over my shoulder, that was just to get an idea of where I needed to mount the reservoir. But as far as trying to figure out how I want to actually run this loop, this is the first part of the process. So what I did was I have one fan in the front and one fan on the top. It's not necessary that you install everything, because what matters here is the spacing, how much interior space you're going to have after you delete for radiator fan and radiator fan. And what I ran into actually is I found out that the clearance between the GPU, which is going to go right here, and this reservoir was non-existent. It actually pressed up against the reservoir. I fit it in, but I had to figure out a way to get it a little bit more clearance, so that at least I had a millimeter or two of room between the end of the PCB and these support brackets here. So what I did was the mounting brackets, the radiator for this reservoir, actually had some little rubber nubbins that I think were like, you know, anti-vibration little pieces. So what I did was I removed those little rubber pieces, I screwed the bracket back together, and I was able to take back about 2 millimeters off of the end here, actually 2 millimeters off of here, and that gave me the necessary 2 millimeters to make sure that I could install my graphics card without a problem. I hope that, because this is, you know, this pump does tend to vibrate a little bit, that removal of those anti-vibration rubber pieces aren't going to make for an issue. I really doubt that they will, but who knows? Maybe my case will now be a vibrator. We'll say that. Can I say that? I'm not sure. One thing that I did notice though, and a problem that I ran into, I posted on Twitter. Right now I have G-Skill, this G-Skill Trident Z DIMM, as a stand-in for the Corsair DIMMs, because like I said, they're in my my personal rig right now, and these are approximately the same height. Actually, the Corsair ones might be a little bit taller, but even with this maybe somewhat shorter DIMM, it's still running into clearance issues with this fan. Let me zoom in here. Alright, so I'm not sure how well this is coming off on camera, but so this is the DIMM here, and the fan, the DIMM actually extends outwards past where the fan has to mount. Some motherboards have the DIMM slots further down, so that they don't interfere with the fan. Some have them like this. Actually, a lot of X99 boards have them in this position. So I was hoping that I was going to have enough clearance, but I don't. Right here by a couple of millimeters. So what I've decided to do was, instead of go with like something like a low profile fan, which is not going to be able to move as much air, I wanted to use the Corsair fans here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go with a set of Corsair Vengeance LPX, which is a low profile DIMM, and it will not interfere with the fan. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to use any RGB memory for this build. Such is life. So that's where I think we're going to leave it for right now, guys. This video actually gone on a little bit longer than I anticipated. I tend to ramble a lot, I know. Let me know down below in the comments if you guys are excited for this build, or as excited for this build as I am, because I think that this system with the purple coolant and all the white features here, including the white features on the motherboard and the dual 1080 Ti's, are just going to look freaking great, and I can't wait to get to work on actually putting the loop together. Unfortunately, I can't do that until I get the CPU block, and I have actually, since I started filming this video, or earlier today, I spoke with my rep at Watercooled, and he assured me that it is on the way. So hopefully it comes in soon. Hopefully we can get you another part of this series. But leave a thumbs up if you like this video. Get subscribed to the channel if you are not already. 10,000 subscriber giveaway is coming, so tell your friends, spread the word, and hopefully we'll get to 10,000 soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.